gentle persons, 1st and 15th. Welcome to the inaugural episode of 1st and 15th. It's an opinionated podcast series, we'll call it, looking at cigar industry news through the lens, specifically of online cigar media, social media. Anyway, that's the elevator pitch. Again, 1st and 15th, and it's brought to you by Kaplowitz Radio, www.kaplowitz.xyz, in collaboration with Comedy Cigars Music. That's comedycigarsmusic.com. I, of course, am Kaplowitz Media, and with me is
Phil Carruth, sometimes known as Bill Carruth.
Bill Carruth, my good friend. Music. Bill Carruth. I'm sorry, I stepped on you. Some Comedy Cigars Music. So here we are.
Here we are.
In my studio.
Yes, luxurious. My luxurious studio here.
And
also, this studio, I will say, sponsored by Comedy Cigars Music.
Wow. My studio has yet to gain sponsorship, but once it does, I'll make sure to play that heavily.
Yes. Yeah. Comedy Cigars Music has invested a lot of financial backing into my studio.
Are we just hitting this hard from your end because tax time is coming up? Are you trying to claim this as like a lot of write-offs? Is that why we're hitting this so hard?
Well, there's a catch, because to claim the write-off, you also have to have, I think, so much income coming in to claim that write-off. So
Ooh.
I wish it could be a tax issue. Trust me, I wish that more than anyone. But no tax issue. Just a way to make myself feel better that my garage is a studio.
We could always fall back on the old claim a bunch of kids you don't have.
Yes.
Could thing.
Do that. Yeah.
You know, me and my 42 kids do that occasionally. Depending on, anyway, it's the first show. Let's not get too. This is more than just banter.
Yes.
Bill, this is. So what is this? The elevator pitch through the lens of cigar media. Since this is the first episode, what are we doing exactly, and why are we different than everybody else that's doing this? And let me start off with, we're going to cover news, but we're really covering the cigar media. It's kind of like who watches the Watchmen.
Exactly.
That's all you got, exactly?
Well, exactly.
I just talked for like 30 seconds straight.
I'm trying to be the guy that just adds fill-ins there. But I think what I'm really striving to go for is accountability. Or maybe not accountability, because I don't know who's accountable.
Because who am I?
As though somebody owes me an explanation for anything.
Right. Well, what we're going to be doing here is, in the interest of full disclosure, well, maybe not full disclosure, but to give people a lay of the land, we're going to lead with what we call a lead story. Because we don't bury the lead here at Kaplowitz Radio. We're going to lead with the lead. And then we're going to talk about some other stuff that's, we'll call it less than lead worthy. And then we're going to slide into looking around social media. And then we're going to have a little bit more fun, do some recommendations. We got a mailbag segment at the end. And so, yeah, that's what to expect, I guess. And
yeah,
thanks for pressing play. You know?
Thank you for joining us and being willing to listen to our interpretation of cigar media.
Lead story time, then. Lead story. Gather around tightly, gentle persons. Oliva invests in Cigar Page. That is our lead story. Phil, what are your thoughts?
So you have a lot of smaller companies, I'll say, that sell direct to customer. My thought on that is why they probably do that is, for one, maybe they don't have the reach into retail, online retail, stuff like that. Probably more profitable for them. Maybe takes out a middleman to some degree. So Oliva buying or investing in Cigar Page, essentially, I mean, I would imagine it's another profit, another avenue for profit, maybe some more control. Anytime a company comes in to invest in another company, there has to be something to benefit them. So if they've looked at Cigar Page, like what they do, maybe they think they could help Cigar Page out and probably help themselves out to some degree. So I don't know. I mean, some people might have the view that it's not a good thing, but I think a cigar company being intertwined with a retailer can't necessarily hurt. And let's be honest, there's brick and mortars too. I actually got a text from a guy this week that said, I believe he was down in Indy, and said it was a Rocky Patel shop. So Rocky Patel, does whatever they do for that shop to maybe be more of an exclusive, not completely exclusive, but a more prominent brand.
A working partnership.
Right.
Which is how I would categorize all this. But with any partnership, not with any, but with many partnerships, there's a bigger and a littler. There's a 51 to a 49, say. And my initial reaction was, who's helping who? Whom? With this?
Whom?
Who's whom? Is it whom or is it who? In that, I'm asking a YouTuber. I'm the writer, and I'm asking a YouTuber grammatical questions. I'm sorry.
Let's say who, because I think whom makes me doubt that I know the English language at all. When people say stuff like whom.
Never use a semicolon if you're not sure, gentlepersons. That's if there's one thing I can impart upon you. But so is Oliva helping Cigar Page, or is Cigar Page helping Oliva? And I know they're both helping each other, but who's the bigger shot over here? And taking into account it's not Cigar Page that Oliva is actually investing in, it's Brand Shopper, which is a larger entity that happens to own Cigar Page. So who's happier about this? Who's feeling between these two like, oh man, I'm going to wake up tomorrow a little more famous with a little extra money in my bank account?
Well, and that's the thing. It has to go both ways at some point. Now, with Cigar Page being owned by Brand Shopper, obviously I don't have the insight on what that framework looks like, but it would seem to me that Cigar Page is kind of the middle guy, that Brand Shopper decided, hey, this is going to happen.
Right. And
Oliva is the company to help boost this part of our business.
Yeah, and Oliva, and just to get a little more newsy, Brand Shopper, founded by the founder of Cigars International. Mm-hmm. And underneath that umbrella, got the cigarpage.com rolling. And first of all, I'm getting sidetracked already, but I looked at these websites, our Cigar Page, and it's not the best looking website. So I'm thinking the first thing you're going to see maybe is a cleaner website, a more modern looking website, which should help.
Yeah, I can see that.
To answer my question, maybe, it's Cigar Page that feels like, wow, it's a good thing Oliva is on board helping us. But Oliva has a funny history itself. I don't know if you pay attention to online price wars or whatever. Oliva is one of those companies that's constantly giving deep discounts all over the big guys. And I wonder if that's going to stop. They've been like a stack them high and let them fly business model for a long time. Does this make that different is what I'm wondering. And I don't even know if I'm asking you that or what's your take on that?
Yeah, maybe, because so if you have kind of going, hitting your first point there on how Cigar Page looks, I've been there a couple times, and I think website-wise, and I'm not a web designer, but I've definitely seen websites that maybe are more streamlined, things like that. And so if Oliva can come in and straighten that out, that helps everybody. That helps Oliva, that helps Brand Shopper, and, essentially, like I said, what seems like maybe the middle guy, Cigar Page in it. And that just makes Oliva look better, that they've come in and done this. And, I don't know. And the one question I would have is, how do you handle product once you're invested in that retail? I mean, is there an automatic assumption that now Oliva stuff is going to be pushed a little harder Do they
you
get
would expect?
Are there more exclusive deals? Which, yeah, I mean, why? Honestly, from a business standpoint, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you push your stuff more?
You would have to. You would be beholden to. I would imagine that's part of the framework.
Yeah, there'd be no reason there'd be no reason to get invested in it to just be in line with everybody else that website's selling now.
Now, here's another thing, and I think you touched on it. I forget if we talked about this before we got the camera, the audio rolling recording. Direct sales. Why wouldn't Oliva just cut out that middleman and say they're selling direct?
Well, I think with Oliva, with them being a bigger company, I don't know they can handle that, would be my guess. Because I think with the smaller companies,
it's about distribution.
I think so, because I think with the smaller companies, it's probably more cost-effective and easier just because, and it's not a knock on the small companies, that's just kind of how it goes, but on the smaller companies, they don't have, I said companies. Companies. On the smaller companies, they don't have probably the customer base, so they don't have to ship out as many orders as Oliva does, and they don't have pallets of cigars going out and things like that. So for Oliva, I would think for Oliva to do direct, it'd probably be a nightmare for them.
And it would also piss off brick and mortars, but this isn't not going to piss off brick and mortars. Brick and mortars get pissed off about stuff like this on the regular. I mean, just because it's e-commerce. Brick and mortars are anti-e-commerce, which is almost another topic entirely. But they really do limit what companies could do as far as direct selling.
Yeah, right.
Direct-to-customer selling.
That becomes a thing where the brick and mortars are probably going to have to think outside the box a little bit. Like this, not necessarily a thing that ties in directly to this, but one thing that ties in is Famous Smoke Shop. Obviously an online retailer, but they also have a brick and mortar shop, and they just put out, I mean, they've been pushing on social media for a little while now this year, and tail into last year, but they just opened up this really nice cigar lounge. And that's maybe where brick and mortars are going to have to get to, really pushing stuff like that, because at the end of the day, there's in order to compete with something online, your destination has to be a destination.
Right.
Otherwise, some people might be really loyal to a brick and mortar, or they have friends that go there all the time. But at some point, just with the pricing, how online can capitalize on that and different things, I think brick and mortars are going to have to become a destination for more than just a cigar.
If they could handle it.
Yeah.
There's going to be, I think, a more obvious hierarchy in the size and reach of those brick and mortar shops. Mm-hmm. The larger ones are going to be able to swing over and do more of that, and I feel they probably should. But again, who am I? But the littler guys are going to maintain that almost romantic self-image of being like the neighborhood joint.
Right.
Like, this is for people that live within maybe 45 minutes of the shop. There's another shop 45 minutes over that has those other guys covered, and this is your neighborhood joint. But they're not going to have everything every cigar guy wants.
Yeah.
And they're going to maybe have to align themselves with somebody further up the ladder. Like, if you want the new boutique release in Corona, they might not have that at your local brick and mortar, your local shop. They're going to have to be ready to and be okay with saying, hey, why don't you get that there? If it's something you have in shop, we appreciate your business. You have to understand we can't have everything because this is what we are.
Right.
It just sounds like sour grapes when they get a bug up their butt, the little guys. And again, nothing against them, but they have to realize what they are too. Just like I have to realize what Kaplowitz Media is, you have to realize what your joint is, and it is what it is. Like, I'm not mad that Cigar Aficionado is making so much more advertising dollars than I am.
Right.
It just seems like,
There's longevity to that too, which is Olivia's a big hitter in that. I mean, people that smoke cigars know Oliva. I mean, you can't get around that. So that's the thing. I mean, that's always the thing with the smaller brick and mortars or just smaller business in general. business is business, and
a little self-awareness
when the big guys decide to make a move, you either have to be ready for that, or you're insulated enough and you're secure enough in whatever you're doing financially or otherwise that, okay, we might take a little hit, but we'll be all right.
Right, and another way to look at it is, and again, I'm going to use myself, Kaplowitz Media is not a competitor to Cigar Aficionado. They're playing a different game. Right. They're doing their thing. I'm making enough money to keep the lights on. You know, that's my job. I'm essentially freelancing for myself. Right. I hold no sour grapes toward Schenken making another $1 million. Right. It's a different game. I can't worry about that. I can't let that affect what I need to do. Yeah. So that's the lead story. Do we have anything else to add to that?
I don't think so. I think we tore that thing apart pretty well. I mean, we might have some people that disagree with this, but I think we.
Did we come at it opinionated enough? Because I understand. I mean, first of all, I'm kind of new to news. I've been reviewing cigars for like 5 or 6 years. I've been avoiding news for about that long. Do we have to like anger people? Do we have to like get like loudly opinionated and then say, if you change my mind? And,
yeah, I think so. I think we got to yell more. And we've got to, I don't know, we got to have some sound effects of like slamming fist on the desk and making sure we let everybody know that their opinion does matter, but
here's mine.
Yeah. Maybe not as much as ours, because, we're experts, as a lot of people are somehow.
Right. Well, and I like to say that not everybody could do what I do. You can't just start a blog. You first have to have an email address.
That's right.
To hook into that. There are gates to entry to play in this league.
Well, it's just like what I do. I mean, you can't just go on and do stupid characters behind a cheap table. I mean, you have to have the table.
Exactly.
You have to have the table.
And let's take a moment. Let's become a little humble here, and let's take a moment to feel #blessed for your table.
Yeah. I am blessed. Every time I look at this table, I think Comedy, Cigars, and Music built this whole luxurious studio in my garage that I have to disassemble so I can pull my car in. At least they could have done is got me a nicer table.
Well, I have a full disclosure, behind-the-scenes stuff. I understand people like behind-the-scenes stuff. I have a rather large folding card table in my spare bedroom.
See, there. But honestly, you can do whatever you want with that table. You can move it. You can put it on 2 legs if you want and just go at an angle for some reason. If you want to do that, make a little hill.
Just last night, I was up kind of, I don't want to say disgusted with myself, but full on aware of my privilege that I have a spare room in my house that I'm renting to have a card table that I purchased at Walmart.
I sometimes almost stay up thinking about my privilege until I realize, oh yeah, I got to get to bed because I got to get up and work.
You got to keep that privilege coming.
Yeah. You got to keep that privilege going strong, and to do that, it requires me getting up at 4 or 5 in the morning. In other news,
and this is gonna be news masquerading as a reason for me to have an opinion, because the first bit of news comes from Alec Bradley. And they are they are bringing back to market their Filthy Hooligan and Filthy Hooligan Shamrock for 2021. And those are, of course, Candela offerings. And people know I have a lighter palate, generally speaking. I am a big Candela fan. And I do not like at all that Candela, which was once a U.S. market, which was once the most popular way to produce cigars for the American market, is now relegated to being a novelty stick in March.
Right.
So
yeah, I don't have a strong opinion on that. I'm not a huge Candela guy, but I think it's also a thing where, I don't know. I've even talked to newer smokers, and it seems like I can ask somebody like, "Well, do you like a?" I just try to use whatever language, whether it's right or not. Like, do you like something that's a little bit heavier? It's going to be a little more flavorful. Or do you like lighter stuff? And 9 times out of 10, especially newer smokers, heavier, because people just naturally want to lean towards that way because it's like, oh yeah, and I think people relate that to stuff like alcohol. Oh yeah, no, I want the strongest thing you got.
Right, or the bitterest thing you got, the IPA. Right. I want it more bitter, sour, right. No, more imbalanced. No, and a lot of that is back to cigars, because I'm not a beer guy. But back to cigars, a lot of that is the way people. It's two things. We're in America. Go big or go home. Mm-hmm. You want strong cigars. You want powerful cigars. You want big cigars. The other aspect of that is a lot of these, especially new smokers that say that they love these full-flavored, full-strength cigars, they're not smoking a cigar maybe the way I smoke a cigar. And what I mean by that is I think if they retrohaled more, if they held the smoke in their mouths more, they would realize that they don't necessarily need that full flavor, that full strength.
Yeah.
They could get some of the complexities, some of the nuances of a lighter bodied cigar, like a Candela, in the extreme version of lightness, a Candela.
Yeah.
And I think it's a newbie thing, maybe, but I mean, you have seasoned smokers that love these peppery flavor bombs. I'm just not necessarily a fan of them. I like elegance.
I kind of like a spectrum of cigars, I would say. Like I said, I'm not a huge Candela guy, but I like a spectrum. And what I've noticed the more I smoke, and this probably isn't new to especially experienced smokers, is sometimes those big heavy cigars are just overwhelming. And I don't even mean, like the nicotine of it. It's just when you have a couple big heavy flavors, they can really drown out everything else.
It's imbalanced.
Yeah.
By definition. And people always like to talk about how can you be objective? It's all subjective when you review cigars. But at the end of the day, there are some objective qualities to reviewing a cigar, and one of them is balance. Is a thing balanced? Or does it have that one kind of pepperwood chocolate note all mixed into one, just hitting you over the head again and again and again?
Right.
To the point where your palate gets tired. But back to the story, back to the news. Alec Bradley, the filthy hooligan. There's this whole subgenre of St. Patty's cigars. It is what it is. They're Candela. It's green. It's St. Patty's Day. Do you think they really sell these? Are these like flying off the shelves like this one time a year?
That's hard to say because I think people review them and get excited about them because they came out, but I guess without being a shop owner or something like that, I really don't know how fast they go off the shelf. I know I've seen them come out, a handful of times in the time I've been smoking and stuff like that, and me personally, it's just not something I go for. So I guess if I'm looking at it just from my point of view, I'm not going to buy it, but because I think there's all kinds of cigar smokers, but I think you have guys that genuinely like that. You have guys that are excited about it just because, oh, hey, this is a one-time-a-year thing. And then you have guys that are collectors. So they'll go and buy it because they want this one that came out in 2021.
Right. There's also something, I'm going to equate it with something else, and it's under the umbrella of kind of like a social media fervor. And I'm going to equate it with Lanceros and bring it back to sales. There's a whole nother subgenre of cigar smokers that claim, and I say claim because I'll get to that they love Lanceros. Mm-hmm. You could talk to any brick and mortar, any shop, anybody selling cigars. That's all well and good, but they don't sell. They're all over social media, the Lancero craze, which is kind of dying down at this point, but they were never sellers. They never flew off the shelves. They sat there. Regardless of what social media was telling you when you flipped through it, Lancero, they weren't moving.
Well, that goes
at the
back
retail
to
level.
That goes back to the, heavy cigars type of thing where, I don't know how many times I've seen that, for those who know smoke Lanceros because they've got the best palate or this or that, and they're more nuanced. And I don't know. I just, from looking at cigars the way I do and the more reviews I do, you could give me a Lancero and it could be awesome. Tomorrow I could turn around and you give me Robusto and it could be just as awesome. I think a lot of times cigar people in the cigar community do themselves a disservice by saying, well, if you don't get this, then you're not really a cigar person, or if you're into this, you're more of a cigar person, or more
a cigar guy.
Yeah, and it's but then within the next breath they'll turn around and say how subjective cigars are.
Right, and it's funny because you also get a lot of kind of bro science in cigars.
Yes.
And you hear percentages anywhere between 60 and I've heard as high as 90, believe it or not, of the flavor of the cigar comes from the wrapper. And that's why these thinner ring gauges are so flavorful. But there's also other sides to that, of course, that it doesn't contribute that much. Some of my favorite cigars, and I'm not going to put any brands out there necessarily because I'm not speaking to them now and I don't want to put words in their mouth, but some of my favorite cigar blenders blend with a kind of neutral wrapper.
Okay.
It's more balanced. It's not one leaf. The wrapper is one leaf, meaning that it has one set of notes, meaning that it could be quite linear, which is what I get from a lot of these Lanceros. You get a really nice note sometimes, but it is that one note. And it's just, and to wrap it back around to all this stuff, and what we're going to touch on here, it's a lot of social media stuff. It's a lot of guys that don't quite know as much as they think they know, positing these opinions until they become science.
Well, and one thing that I'll say to go along with that, because when you started talking about just a wrapper, because we've like you were saying, it's all over the place about how the wrapper contributes this much or that much. I think one of the companies, and not to name drop here, I'm just saying it because I thought of it. One of the companies that I think does a good job in dispelling that, whether they do it accidentally or intentionally, or maybe I missed the mark on this, but is Castagli. Because Castagli will go through and they, however they do it, and I'm definitely not this in tune with cigars as far as their breakdown of it, but they will go and point in different sections of the cigar on, well, this is where you're going to get this flavor, and this is where you're going to get that flavor. And so if it's all the wrapper, then that would be pointless. But the thing is, with some Castagli cigars that I've had, if you go back and look at some of the stuff they mark up, from the flavor notes I get, they tend to be kind of dead on. So if it's all with the wrapper,
what's going on?
I must be missing something, because when you look at that breakdown, they don't just break down different sections of the wrapper.
So back to the news topic. Alec Bradley is coming out with their Filthy Hooligan Shamrock for 2021. It will look like it's caught fire, because a few people, another thing we have to remember is we're such a small market, such a small industry, that it's deceptive. You're going to see, it's going to feel like your whole feed on Facebook, on Twitter, or whatever is full of people on St. Patrick's Day and around St. Patrick's Day smoking green cigars. But really, it's probably, if you took a count, 6. Maybe 8, if I had to guess.
Well, social media is such an easy way to push stuff, because say you have 8 people that posted the Shamrock or whatever, and this isn't to get on Alec Bradley, but just using that cigar as an example, Alec Bradley can repost that, share to their story. Other people can repost that, share to their story, retweet it, all this and that. So one tweet or a handful of tweets ends up being all over the place. It's going to travel.
Right. Moving on. I feel like I'm steering this too much just as a co-hosted effort, but I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it here. Half Wheel posted a review of the Matilde.
Yes, I believe that's correct.
Quadrata, Toro Bravo. And that's not the news. The news is that they open-handedly stated at the onset of the review that they're trying to do better about what cigars they Redux review. And that kind of got me thinking. First of all, you don't seem to do Redux reviews, Phil.
Yeah, not right now. I mean, for one, my YouTube channel's fairly, as far as the cigar content, my YouTube channel is fairly young. And secondly, and this isn't a knock on people that do, Redux reviews, because I wouldn't mind getting into it, but there's just a lot more cigars I want to smoke before I go back to other ones to review.
Yeah, I could say for me, for Caploots Media, my Reduxes have three reasons. It's one is, in no particular order, one is the passing of time, how it sets in my humidor, how it smokes 6 months later, how the same blend smokes in the same vitola smokes, a year later, whatever, time, the passing thereof. The other one is if it's in a different vitola, I consider that a redux of sorts because it's the same blend, different vitola. What does this blend taste like in Corona? What did it taste like in Robusto? Blah, blah, blah. The other one is completely self-serving because I like to fancy myself as a somewhat gifted writer, is I have different ways of reviewing in the written form. I have short reviews, medium reviews, and the godforsaken wasteland that is my long reviews. And I just like to write. And I feel like it does give a different perspective of it if you manage to read your way all the way through it. So it's funny that Half Wheel apparently feels like they're not doing a good job at it because it required their attention. Because honestly, I mean, I'm not going to, again, not to name drop, but Half Wheel is my personal, as well as a lot of other people's personal go-to sources. And I've never thought they were doing a poor job with the Redux. Like, it would never cross my mind to even think like, hey, are they doing their Redux reviews well?
Well, and that, that kind of goes to stand to a testament to them too, that they were able to step back and look at what they were doing, and maybe they found some holes in it or some things they determined were weak spots and addressed it, which I think is cool for people to be able to do, especially people that have more of a substantial base like Half Wheel does, to be able to say like, nobody was really complaining about it maybe, or maybe people were complaining about it, I don't know. But just to be able to on your own be like, we could probably clean that up here, clean that up there. And
some self-reflection.
Yeah.
That's good, I guess. I mean, from an outsider perspective, as someone who doesn't do a lot of self-reflection, sounds like a good thing to do. Now, here's something you wanted to talk about, Phil, moving along. Hiram and Solomon.
Yep, they just released that they are now in the German market. So they're over in Germany. And I have a little bit of experience with Hiram and Solomon, not on a personal level with them, but just their cigars. They tend to do a good job. It's cool to see companies get to spread out a little bit and open up to different markets. And I've seen a couple other companies do that maybe this year, the tail end of last year.
Right.
But, good for them. That's cool.
Yeah, there was actually a big rush before the dust settled into nothing with the FDA stuff that we were looking at as an industry, of companies looking outside of the United States for sales. And Germany is a hot spot. Mm-hmm. So good for them. If we're going to split hairs, if I'm going to go out of my way to be negative, which comes naturally to me, I like them, I think, a little less, the H&S, than you do. It was one of those cigars I was actually looking forward to smoking, which is sometimes the kiss of death. And I thought they were a little less spectacular than I was hoping they might be. But it's still good for them. And it's interesting because, say what you will about them, they're a small brand. Yeah. And the fact that they managed to open up distributorship to Germany as a market says a lot about the state of affairs, like I said, with the FDA, because the FDA is gone for now, but they've said they're coming back. So it's just good business to be elsewhere, too, outside of the U.S.
Oh, yeah. And I would imagine, it's an obvious point, but anytime a company can expand their reach or whatever, that's good. Now, the only thing I will say, and not from a negative thing, just a question I've had is, some of the companies right now that are a little bit smaller, and obviously I don't have the insight on their
just appearance-wise.
Yeah, the access to their tobaccos or anything like that. But I just wonder. I would think that expansion has to be based off too, or has to be considered that do we have the inventory to saturate these markets or get into these markets for a long time? And yeah, I mean, that's just a question I have. The last thing I would think you'd want to do is expand into these markets, and then the quality goes down because you don't have access to the tobaccos or whatever that you thought you were going to have or plan to have or whatever.
Right, because they're not. I don't know the ins and outs of Hiram and Solomon, but I'm imagining that they're not vertically integrated. They're relying on leaf grown by other people, and I don't even know if they have their own factory and what kind of leaf security they have. And yeah, you don't want the product to be spread thin to the point where it's no longer as good as it once was.
Right.
So maybe they're taking 20% of their cigars that they were going to put on the U.S. market and moving them over to Germany.
Yeah, and that's all a thing too. And any time a company looks at something, you have to look at what your demand is, and maybe Hiram and Solomon just has a bigger demand in that market. Because I know even some of the reviews I've done, and it's not a knock to them. It's in some ways just because I enjoy their cigars, it's disappointing, but when I've done reviews on them, I've had people say that they haven't heard from the company, or they've heard of them, but they haven't actually had anything of theirs yet.
Right.
So all that stuff could factor in too, that if they're not selling as well as they'd like here, it's not as prominent here for them as they had hoped. Yeah, why wouldn't you stretch out to a place that maybe is asking for you to come there?
Right, and maybe even not directly asking, but asking in terms of, hey, the water's nice out here.
Sure, yeah.
Come take a dip in these waters because we don't have a lot of problems on the horizon.
Yep.
Compared to where you're at now. So maybe that's the calling card they put out. But it's always a question. These small companies, I see a lot of them come, and instead of establishing their personal territory, like where their home field is, they try to expand too quickly. And it's a pretty good way to cut off your nose to spite your face and to kind of kill yourself. But I don't think they seem to have a good following, Hiram and Solomon, back to, who we're talking about. So good luck to them over in Germany.
They try to do a very good job, I think, just from what I see on social media. I think they try to do a very good job of connecting with the people that support them, people that buy their stuff. I know obviously sometimes the bigger companies might not have the time to do that, but I think that's another thing that gives an advantage to the smaller companies is they can actually invest time into dropping. I mean, because whether people like it or not, on social media, it is a social thing. And I've noticed this even in my realm a little bit. I won't go too much into that right now, but if you don't interact with the people that are supporting you, you will lose the numbers. Your numbers will not be high, and even if you're getting a lot of attention on one platform, you will not get it on that platform because you're not interacting.
That's interesting. You talk about different social media platforms. We'll hit on that in the social media segment coming up maybe, but what a lot of people don't seem to realize is when you make contact for, say, Twitter, when you make content, I should say, for figure Twitter, it doesn't mean that same content is going to be successful over at Facebook,
right,
or Instagram. It's different content. I keep saying content. It's different context. It's different creation methods. But the other thing, one last thing about Hiram and Solomon is they do have a built-in audience because they're very closely tied in with that Freemasonry stuff, which I know nothing about.
Right.
And even if I did, I don't think I could say I do.
I don't think so. Yeah, I think that's against some kind of rule or sub law or sub rule or something.
Do you remember when it was like way more secretive than it is now, or is that just me?
Well, only when I read that Dan Brown book, Da Vinci Code.
It's a good book, a real page turner. Yeah, but it just seems like it used to be more secretive, and now you have people with like bumper stickers and rings and necklaces and pendants and clothing that signifies that they're a Freemason.
Which I would think for a secret society would really tick you off.
It's like the least secretive society. Anyway, that's it for Hiram and Solomon. Moving on, another one of something else you wanted to talk about, Phil, and I'm going to throw it up as product reviews with this subtitle to this segment, to this topic of how the fuck do you review a box?
Yeah. So what Cap is referring to with his well put question is the New Air 840 count Humidor. So New Air just released, or not just released, but recently released an 84 count Humidor that is temperature controlled, both heat and cool, and also has its own humidification system. So it'll be interesting how that plays out, because this is their newest model. All their previous models either, didn't have a cooling or heating factor to it. Then I think they started releasing stuff with a cooling factor, and then they released one with a cooling and heating, which is not to plug New Air here, but I just know because I know, because those who know.
Because those who know. Yes.
Those who know. Obviously, hashtag those who know.
Mm-hmm.
Is called the OptiTemp, which is actually the 250 count humidor I have. So it controls cool and heat, but you have to have your own humidification device. So I'm interested to see how this one works out. I don't know if there'll, obviously I don't know if there'll be any growing pains with it or things they have to go, but they've actually done quite a bit with this one, which I'm not going to get into all that because I'm not reviewing it.
Right.
Not a sponsor.
But how would you review it? How would you review a box?
So here's the thing. I think you just review it. Okay, so
I think you just review it.
Hold on.
Well, no,
I don't want to get in trouble here, but so unboxings are now being touted as reviews, which I can't totally understand that, because I think when you review something, you have to have time with it. If you're unboxing something and reviewing it within a few days or few weeks, I don't know how much of a review that is, but it's definitely, so I look at things like that, and it's definitely more of a marketing thing, which good on them. I mean, it gets the product out there, and X amount of people are talking about it, and X amount of videos are put out about it. But in unboxing, I don't watch a lot of unboxings as far as, especially products like that, just because that doesn't really tell me anything I couldn't find out by going on their website and downloading their PDF.
Right. See, so for right or wrong, and whether it's my ego or not, I like to pride myself on my reviews. That's what I write. I write 99.9% of what I write are reviews. Art is reviews. And a lot of what's passed off as reviews, particularly in your area of YouTube, not to pick on you or YouTube,
nope,
I wouldn't consider them reviews at all. They're not reviews. They're talking about a product, but they're not reviewing the product. I could watch several quote-unquote YouTube cigar reviewers review a cigar, and I have no deeper understanding of what they experienced during that smoking than I did before. They added nothing to my understanding of what I might expect if I were to smoke that cigar.
Well, that's where, just to not to plug myself here, but so
I mean, it is half your show.
Right.
I mean, humble is one thing.
Yeah, not to plug a review I did, but so I did this unboxing for My Monthly Cigars, and that was my thought going into it, was that within a day, if not less, of that getting released, 20 people will post a picture of it on Instagram. So in my unboxing, I'm not really telling anybody something they couldn't find out without watching my video. So I want to entertain people. I wanted to make the unboxing entertaining, which quite frankly, I've watched tons of unboxings of that and products, and the unboxings are not entertaining. So not only is it not being reviewed, it's not entertaining, and I don't mean that to knock anybody. It's just I literally, like I said, with this new Air Humidor, which I think is really, it has potential to be really cool. But I think the unboxing videos, I went on the day I saw that this Humidor was released and read their PDF file.
Right.
That tells me everything I need to know about what I would see in an unboxing video. Plus, I get 20 pictures of it.
Now, I guess that begs the question, what do you look for in a humidor? if you're shopping for a humidor. And I haven't shopped for a humidor for a while, but I guess the dollar bill trick. Make sure it's tight, the seal is tight, slide a dollar bill in it.
Yep.
Close it, see if you could yank out the dollar bill. If you can, don't buy that humidor. But again, I mean, you would know better than I do because I don't know. Does anybody even do that in their reviews? I would imagine you would have to.
They talk about this. I've seen guys talk about the seal, and then they talk about all the features that come with it, which, like I said in an unboxing, you don't know the unit yet as far as how it's going to perform. So, yeah, I mean, you know, when I did my review of it, it was a 3-month review, so I had time with it. And what I looked for that I knew people would be interested in is, does it hold the temperature well? Does it hold humidity well? What kind of humidity do I use? This and that. Those are all things that take more time than an unboxing video can allow.
I would, just to wrap it up with, say, a humidor review, I would need to have that humidor for, I would say, a year. And then I would impart at the end of that year via a review is, did it work or not, which is a yes or no question.
Yep, simple yes or no.
That's the deal. So we started talking about social media. I'm going to try to move it along here. I don't want to take up all of your Saturday or mine. But the biggest happenings on social media in the recent little bit of time, and we've talked about this, Phil, brand owners are reviewing their own stock. And I'm going to say names. I'm going to say Illusione Cigars, who is a sponsor, in full disclosure, Capitalist Media, and Padilla Cigars. The owners of both are reviewing their cigars, and in the case of Padilla, other people's cigars, which I'm not sure is worse or better than reviewing your own. But it feels, and I talked to Dion about this, it feels yucky, but the way he does it feels less yucky because and I don't know how Padilla exactly does it. I haven't watched a lot of Padillas, but how Dion does it, it's very much of an advertisement. It's a what to expect thing. He's not reviewing or rating. He's saying, as the manufacturer, this is what I have imparted because this is what I wanted to impart. So this is what you can expect. You know, it's creamy, it's spicy, it's medium bodied.
Which
that's
to Dion's credit on that, you know, when I think he's, don't quote me on this, but I think he's maybe put out 2 right now that I've seen. And yeah, just like you said, you know, he's saying that's what to expect. To me, when I look at a review like that Dion's doing, I tend to think that's okay, because if you would go on a lot of cigar manufacturers, you go on their website and they tell you the same thing. You know, they tell you what you can expect from the cigar. So
they give you tasting notes.
Get up there and just be smoking his cigar and say, yeah, this is what you can expect. It's no different than the copy that's on his website. You know, which I think there's some credit to that. Now, I think where you get into some tricky area is if you're genuinely doing a cigar review and you're a manufacturer, I think you got 2 things that could go against you. One, if you're reviewing other people's cigars, I think as a manufacturer, you almost have to be sure that it's a cigar you enjoy, because if you say the cigar is crap, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you say
and then follow it up with, my version of this is better, so go buy that.
But on the other side of that, if you review your own cigar and you really get into the weeds about it, and people pick up that cigar and they don't get anything that you're getting, that doesn't look good. That really
it questions your entire ability, not just that cigar, but everything.
I won't name any names, but there's a cigar manufacturer that anytime you read their descriptions, there's like 1,000 different flavors in that cigar, which to me, a lot of that, and I don't want to say like, oh, I have a better palate or this or that, because I don't believe that, but to me, that's a little unbelievable. And then when you smoke that cigar and you get like 3 of those flavors, that doesn't look great.
There is one cigar company who I'm not going to mention by name, but they're prone to email blasts and very low production numbers. And those who know. And what they do is interesting because they break it down into thirds, which is a tried and true method of reviewing cigars.
Yep.
I have a pretty good palate, and I could say that because I have a history of being a chef, and that's kind of what you need. And cigars, and I might be ruffling feathers here, and I know, like I said, it's a tried and true way of doing it, but cigars very rarely taste that different from first to second to third, because it's the same cigar. And I know you could lay leaves in different ways and back-loaded and front-loaded and have different experiences that way. But to say graham cracker in the second third and then say elderberry in the third, both following up, mint chocolate chip in the first third, that's not necessarily the way cigars smoke. And at a certain point, you're not relaying the experience effectively,
right?
And you're doing it with too much information, not enough, which is just comical.
I think some of the best cigar retailers, when I go on their site and I'll look to see, and I try to make it a practice not to look to see what they got before I do my review. But when I go back after the fact, or if I'm just looking for a cigar, I'm not going to review it, I'm just curious. The best, I think, cigar retailers are the ones that name like 3 or 4 flavors. It's just like, hey, this is probably what you'll get. That's good.
Right.
And I think that's, I commend that type of thing when they go in and do that.
The top notes, and I do that, so I'm going to thank you. At the beginning of all my notes, I mean, you could really read, I want you to read my stuff, trans persons out there, but you could really read the italicized flavor notes at the top and get a pretty good understanding of what you're going to experience. And the rest is nuance. And
I make sure to say that in my reviews too, when I can, or if, and obviously when that's not what I honestly got, because that's what reviews are supposed to be. Otherwise, there's no point in doing them. But I'll even mention that, oh, hey, I got this a couple times. Like,
right.
I'm not going to show, like, if I get a really, really strong flavor of something once or twice, I'm not going to showcase that as the flavor I got that third, because it's not. It was enjoyable when I got it, but don't expect to get that every puff through the second third.
Right. There's a lot of flavors I get on odd puffs. Like I'll go through a cigar and for a few puffs, I'll get some kind of herbaceousness that disappears the rest of the time and wasn't there before, and that's fine. But how much do I need to highlight that? What if I didn't take a puff during that period of time?
Right.
I didn't get it. And you might not get it if you don't take a puff during that time. But anyway, more social media stuff, moving along. I'm scrolling as we're speaking, Phil, through Instagram, and I'm trying to come up to snuff on Instagram because I've been told my Instagram game sucks. And a large part of that is because I don't consider myself, because I'm not a visual person. But you're a visual guy, you're a video guy, you're a YouTuber. Why is the cigar selfie so popular?
Are you talking about like having a cigar with yourself, or just taking a picture of the cigar?
Just taking a picture, a selfie of yourself smoking a cigar.
I don't know. I really don't know. That's not a picture I typically go for. And this isn't a knock on anybody, but guys will put out videos of just themselves lighting a cigar, which apparently people think is really cool to look at.
Best thing ever.
To me, it's I don't know. And, that's the thing, too, with Instagram. Like, I tend to like the guys that take really cool pictures of cigars. And some guys even take liberties with it. They put a ton of filters on.
I love those. It doesn't even look like a cigar anymore.
Yeah. And they do it for an effect. But when I look at those, it's like, okay, they were trying to be artistic with the cigar. They weren't trying to tell you, like, this cigar looked all grainy and everything else. They were trying to get some type of artistic statement with that cigar they wanted. So I think that's cool.
Set a mood.
Just a picture of yourself smoking a cigar. I can't answer that question.
Or let me ask you this: how about the pictures of cigars unfiltered? This is what I'm smoking. They're holding a cigar with one hand. They take a picture with the other hand and they post it. I know what a cigar looks like.
Yeah, but that just goes. That goes. I think
that's
that goes
branding, though.
Yeah, well, it can be, and I think it also goes with any other type of community, like the car community. you'll see tons of pictures of cars if you follow car guys, which I don't because I'm not into cars, but it's the same type of
Weird
thing.
you would go there then, but sure.
Yeah, but it's the same type of thing. I think people just want to see pictures of stuff they think is cool.
And I think that's where I don't get the whole Instagram thing, because I don't want to. I don't have any interest. Nothing personal. I don't care what you're eating. I don't care what you're smoking. I'm still, and we've talked about this before on other shows, and alone by ourselves, unaired. I'm still from that generation where looking at other people's photos is a form of torture. Like I just got back from Disneyland. Come look at these slides.
Yeah, I can't do that. I do enjoy the cigar stuff just because it's a community type thing. So I think everybody I think there is some kind of level of excitement. Like people post these pictures like, oh, hey guys, look at this, I'm smoking this, and people are just happy to be part of that community. But that being said, yeah, I definitely struggle on Disneyland and
and my honeymoon. Here's
honeymoon. And
the kids came over. Here's pictures of them, and this is what I was smoking, and here's a picture of my dog. And so my Instagram efforts so far have been Adidas, punk rock, and 1940s housewives oriented.
Which Adidas, if you're not familiar with me and Cap talking about this before, Adidas is a Achilles on Cap. He is weak for Adidas.
I am weak for. I am. It's a problem. As I'm sitting here wearing an Adidas.
I don't want to even address it because I just feel like I'm enabling.
It's fine. It's fine. So you know what? This has been a nice episode. This has been a first attempt. I kind of like it. It's a cerebral, sedate kind of thing, and let's use this platform to maybe help people too.
Yes.
What do you say, Phil?
I think so. I think we should use it to help.
No, you put out the call. I dropped the ball. You put out the call for a mailbag, for questions.
Yes.
And you were nice enough to direct them to my email address.
Why wouldn't I?
You son of a bitch.
Yeah.
So I got one. Well, I got a couple. I got a few, but I want to address this one.
Okay. Let's start out with one this episode.
Yeah, just one an episode, but send them to caplewitzmedia at mail.com, not Gmail, not anything, just mail, mail.com, caplewitzmedia, mail.com. So this person, first of all, requests anonymity, and for good reason, because they are asking why essentially they have to take a shit after every time, apparently every time, they say every time, they smoke a cigar.
Huh.
And my initial reaction was, are you drinking coffee?
Right. That would make sense.
Coffee, laxative quality, you know. But apparently, Phil, and those still listening, and God bless you if you're still listening, but apparently nicotine itself has a laxative effect, and I'm reading this. It's considered a stimulant laxative because it, quote-unquote, stimulates a contraction that pushes stool out.
Wow. So you would think...
as we're sitting here looking at each other smoking cigars, have you crapped your pants?
Just knowing that, you would think the guys that have a morning smoke and coffee every time they smoke a cigar would be the thinnest people in the world.
You would imagine, and you would imagine wrong.
Yes.
But statistically speaking, it would seem this happens a lot, so I'm going to say maybe 50% of the time, and there's two of us sitting here smoking cigars. I'm drinking coffee, and Phil, I have to ask you, which one of us is sitting in a pile of their own excrement?
Well, it's not me. So that narrows it down.
So what I would say to those gentle persons at home is smoke close to a restroom.
Yes, or smoke on the toilet.
Or just smoke on the toilet. I had a roommate back in the day that he was a cigarette smoker, and he would smoke 2 or 3 cigarettes on the toilet with his coffee. every morning.
Yeah, food and
we
drink.
had one bedroom. We had one bathroom. We had one bedroom. That's a different thing. But no, we had one bathroom, and he's in there for like 45 minutes to an hour every day, and the smell that he left behind. Phil,
what do you think? What do you think he got on the retro hail?
Feces. It's and I shared it with you. It made me think of the George Brett story, which I really want everybody listening to go check out on YouTube. First of all, check out Phil on YouTube, but after that, check out the George Brett story on YouTube for the perfect double tapered shit. But and speaking of double tapered shits, from top to bottom, from end to end, a pretty good inaugural go for this show for First and 15.
Yeah, not bad. A lot of fun. Very, very more cigar talk than we ever usually do, which is kind of nice. Just talking cigars and media and maybe raising some controversy.
You changed my mind.
Yeah, do it.
Do it. I dare you. And for the record, I was smoking. I'm on my hiatus now, basically. And I'll be back creating new content on March 1. But I've been smoking a punch because when left to my own accord and paying out of my pocket and not reviewing, I love, which kind of flies in the face of what I said my palate is, but I love punch cigars, Cuban or not.
Just Cuban? Do you just smoke Cuban punch cigars?
I like them, and I like the Honduran ones, and I only smoke Cubans. I only smoke Cubans except for when I smoke acids. and what have you been smoking, Phil?
I've been smoking the Illusione Singolare, which I believe I know I reviewed this one, and I think it did pretty well in my review. So I've enjoyed it during this little spell as well.
And I am going to go on to say that for the rest of the day, I am not going to be available to talk about cigars because this has been a lot.
Yeah. And we've both been smoking cigars, so at some point today we're probably going to have to use the restroom, I'm guessing.
Well, back to that 50-50 thing, before I go out shopping in a little bit, I might have to shower up. Check out the George Brett story.
Yeah, you got to go out clean, because an explanation for why you've maybe had a mess of yourself isn't a good explanation that's not acceptable by anybody, especially from an adult, is, oh, I've been smoking a cigar. Not a whole lot of people are going to be like, oh, we got you, we understand. That makes sense.
Those who know.
Yeah, those who know.
You know what? Before I shower up, I do have to go out, and one of my trips is going to be to Winco for grocery shopping. And I might not cleanse myself before that because that's sure to keep my 6-foot distance from people.
That's true. This is true.
In these strange times of ours. 1st and 15th. When does it air, Phil?
When does it air? The first and 15th. I can't. I'm guessing.
1st and 15th. I had it written down somewhere.
I know.
The 1st and 15th.
1st and 15th. When would
so
that
where's
air?
That? I had it on a piece of paper.
Only if we could figure out a way to put it into something so people would know.
1st and 15th. First, you know what? We'll get back to you on that.
Yeah,
thanks for listening to this one. And Phil, give yourself a shout out. Then I'm going to hit the button and stop recording and go to Winco.
All right, yeah. Phil Carute. You can find me on YouTube, Comedy Cigars Music, ComedyCigarsMusic.com, and you can find me on Instagram at Phil_Carute.
And Kaplowitz.xyz for me. Thanks for listening.